we're going to use a deal analyzer, but for a rental property type. So, and I know Eric, that's kind of, I wouldn't say his specialty. However, because he does a lot of business in Cincinnati, there's a lot more opportunity there for passive income type properties than in San Diego. Let's just say it's very hard for us to cash flow in San Diego.
Yeah,
But in Ohio, there's opportunity even still today in today's market. So
definitely.
Eric, we want to talk about a case study that Eric was actually involved with. So I'm going to pull up the Zillow. And in the meantime, as Eric starts talking, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a chat a link to our YouTube channel. So if you haven't joined and subscribed to that, that's where we're going to put all the recordings of this, and our Facebook group community as well. So let's get started on this. Let me share my screen. So Eric, why don't you start talking about this this deal from Cincinnati as I pull up the Zillow
Yeah,
information.
perfect timing and jumping up to a stop sign. Yeah, so this is a deal we had talked about previously at a different training, but this was one where I showed one of my flippers up in Cincinnati a home. This house that we were going to analyze, 5559 Maple, is in Kings Mills. It's about 2 streets over from where I live. So I was driving home, I saw the house, and I was like, oh, wait, like, wonder what's going on here. It was the same agent I just showed the house for. So his name was Josh. I called him, was good friends with him. I'm like, hey man, like we're offering on this other one you've got. I see this one that's popped up. Like I'm very interested. Like, is it the same sellers? Obviously you've got both of them listed at the same time. What's going on here? So he's like, yeah, it's the same sellers. We have multiple offers on both. Market was still very hot during that time. So I was just like, hey, get it. Would it make sense for your seller? Like, these are our numbers that we can come in at. We'd already analyzed it. I said, would it make sense for your seller if we package these together? He said, to be honest, I think that actually helped a ton because it's a probate. Sorry, I'm looking to turn. I got traffic going both ways. So he said, it's a probate. Like, that would be easiest for them. So if that's the route you want to go, we can do it. So we offered 310 for both. Maple, we had agreed on a price at 95,000, and then the other one that we ended up flipping, I think we offered 215. So it was actually, let me make sure I got my numbers right, 95 and 215. Yeah, so it was 310 for both. So his goal was to keep this Maple one. It's right next to the amusement park, just a little bit north of Cincinnati, and to Airbnb it. I had walked it, estimated the rehab at 40K. The most expensive part of the rehab was going to be windows. Everything else was pretty reasonably priced. And it's a small home. So we kind of figured that would make for a really good short term. When we bought it, he was like, hey, do you want to go ahead and send it out to a couple different groups, see what other people would be willing to pay for it? It had multiple offers when we got it. So he knew that there was some activity. And I said, absolutely, we would do that. So what we did was we ended up sending it out and had somebody who offered 115,000. So we ended up wholesaling it. But I found it through an investor group. So I kept in touch with the guy. It was a couple streets over from my house. So I was like genuinely curious, like, hey, what do you think the rental estimate's going to be? What do you think keep me updated with not just the rehab, but also the rental side of it. So he got it for 115, put 40K into it. So he was all in at 155. I think he had just the cash. So he didn't have hard money costs or anything like that. And he now has it rented out for 1,900 a month. He ended up doing long-term rental. So it's rented for 1,900 a month. He was all in at 155. The ARV was 200K. It's a nice little like pocket or neighborhood. Like the schools over there are really good and everything like that. So I knew he wouldn't have a hard time finding that. And I'll add this in too, Randy. Like short term, we thought that $3,000 was going to be super on the low end, and it could possibly go for more. We thought for sure it could possibly. We were thinking maybe 3,500 to $4,000 during the busy season of the amusement park.
Got it. What's the amusement park that you guys have there?
Kings Island.
Oh, got it. Okay. Got it. Okay. Awesome. So what I wanted to do is take the deal analyzer that we use for rentals and see, show you kind of what would that look like numbers wise for both parties, right? So initially what Eric said is that his buyer was offering bought it basically, or got it under contract and bought it for 95, and they estimated 40,000 in repairs. So I inputted all the information into our deal analyzer for rentals. So first and foremost, I put 1900 for rent, uh, estimated vacancy rate 5%, estimated maintenance cost 5%, and management fee is 8% normal in your area, or is it 10%? What's the going rate for management if someone does it?
It really just depends. I'd say 8 to 10%. Most commonly would be 10% if like it's something, bad there or anything like that. But we typically see 8.
Okay, well let's even put 10. After repair value 200,000, purchase price. So I put purchase price would be the cost of the purchase plus the rehab. I put it all together. That's why you see 135,000. That's 95 plus 40. Property taxes, I looked it up, 2,400. Insurance 750. I think that it might be more. Is that for a yearly insurance? Is that too little? 750.
I would say we paid, I think, 1,200, but we had a larger home and garage because we lived right near there. So maybe 1,000, maybe, but
Okay. Okay. So let's do 1,000. And then we got closing costs. Let's just say 4 grand roughly, which that's probably on the high side, but let's just be conservative. Loan to value on the rental property, usually a lender, Addison, you can chime in. What are you going to require usually as a down payment on a rental product?
On a rental product, typically anywhere from 15 to 25%.
Okay, so let's put 25 down on this one. So loan to
If
value
it's a
75.
multi-unit, anything 2 units or more, definitely 25.
But you have a product that you can actually go only 15% down on the buy and hold.
15% down on single families. Then I actually have a DSCR product that allows you to go 15% down on multi-units, but that's not through Freddie and Fannie.
Wow, 15% down, dude. You keep
That's
amazing
new.
me.
Yeah, the DSCR product's brand new that just came out for 15% in the last month or so. And we actually just won an $800,000 deal because the other lender could only do 20. And it was an 8.5% rate was par on an $800,000 DSCR loan with 15% down.
Explain, since we're talking about it, explain DSCR for someone that might not know what that is.
So it's just a debt service coverage ratio loan. So with this particular lender, they want to make sure their rent roll covers the mortgage payment. So as long as the rent is equal to or greater than the mortgage payment, you're typically okay.
Okay. So it's not necessarily so much about, I mean, you guys look at the credit of the person, but it's not really, that's not where you put most of your emphasis. It's mostly about how much rental income can this bring in.
Correct. So they'll look at credit to make sure credit still looks good. They'll look at assets to make sure they have the 3 months reserves. And you would for the 15% down, you definitely need top tier credit, 740 or higher.
Okay. And then if you don't go DSCR and you get it in your personal name, let's just say, can you still do it at 15% down?
A single family.
Yeah, a single family. Yeah.
Yep, a single
Okay.
family. And you can do a DSCR in your personal name too. It doesn't have to be in an LLC.
Perfect. All right. So wow, that's awesome. So then let's do, because when I bought buy and holds, I had to put down 25% with the lender I was using years ago. So that's why I was like, oh, that's amazing. 15% down. So let's
downside they did change in the past 2 years is second homes are now kind of treated like investment properties, to where like I used to be like, hey, like you don't want to claim this as an investment property. We can potentially look at doing it as a second home if you're gonna, go there and stay in the area at least a couple times a year. And it would save them and be able to put 10% down, and the interest rate would almost be just as good as a occupied home, but they changed that to now it's 20% for the second home.
Okay, got it. All right, so that's good to know. So I'm going to play around with these numbers in a moment, but I'm going to go back to the 75, which was, mostly the standard for a lot of lenders for a while. So let's keep it at that for now. And then, and I know you might not remember this, Addison, but like in 2022, when this deal happened, someone was probably getting a rate, I would guess, for a rental, a buy and hold, maybe in the 6%, because
That sounds
the
about right. I would say low sixes.
right, because I refinanced a couple of mine into these DSCR loans into a business name out of my personal name, and I locked in a rate of 5%, 5% back then. So anyway, so I'm just being conservative again. So let's just say it was 6% in 2022, and you're in agreement for that. That's conservative, right, Addison?
Yeah, I would say that's pretty conservative. Yeah.
All right, cool. So we plug in all these numbers, right? And then we go to the next sheet on here to see what it spits out. All right, and then we're gonna scroll up. Okay, here we go. So we got our gross rents right here, 22,800 for the year. Here's our purchase price with the rehab, vacancy in dollar amounts, annual maintenance in dollar amounts based on the percentages that we entered on the other sheet. Our property taxes carried over, our insurance, and the management fee that we put in. There's no HOA on this property. I'm guessing, Eric, right? No HOA, I don't think.
Yeah,
for
no,
this
no
community.
HOA there.
All right, so that's 0. And then this spits out our 2 different scenarios, right? If you go cash, right? So if his buyer went cash, which I don't know, did your buyer buy it with cash for the 95,000, or were they considering refinancing into a buy and hold loan? Like what was his intention if he
So
didn't wholesale it?
Yeah, so if he wasn't gonna wholesale it, he originally bought it with hard money, because it was with the flip, and then he was gonna get somebody in there, knock out the work, and then refinance it to DSCR and pull out all of the money because DSCR would include that equity, and he wouldn't have to put as much down.
Okay, got it. Okay, so it's safe to say he still probably would have been about 75% loan to value of the 135,000.
Oh, easily, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So then, this would be his scenario. If he ended up actually holding on to this property, then he would be looking at the right side, the finance purchase side, and he would be getting a gross ROI of 29%, which is based off the gross income minus the fixed costs. Right? If you see here, that's how we come up with the 29%. But then when you take into account, of course, and deduct maintenance and vacancy, that's this section right here, right below it, then the return goes down to 22%, rightly so, right? Because there's an additional expense of maintenance and vacancy that we are accounting for. And then your loan amount would have been 101,000 when he refinanced after he finished the rehab, right? So he was getting 75% in this case study, 75% of the 135,000 after repair value. At 6%, 30-year loan, his estimated principal and interest would have been $600. So his down payment, or his, in this case, he probably would have not have to put down any money because he would have just basically cashed out most of 95 he would have got. No, he would have been out of pocket 30 grand anyway. So this is pretty close to what he would have put down as a down payment if you were to just buy it straight up. So that's pretty accurate, actually. And then minus all, annual principal, interest, and expenses. So that's how this is very simple. There's nothing crazy to it. But by plugging in the numbers on this sheet, it quickly gives you the ROI on what we're looking at from a finance purchase perspective or from a cash purchase perspective, right? So if they were to buy it and just pure cash, their return on it would have been 10.68 after maintenance and vacancy, which, for some, that's not bad, right? For some investors, maybe that's not good enough. I don't know, right? But I think most would be satisfied, with a property giving them cash on cash return of 10% if they bought it cash. But honestly, the way we teach it, the way we talk to our clients is like, why not leverage the bank's money? And if you could leverage the bank's money and still cash flow, why not do that and buy more properties? So instead of just buying one property and use up all of your cash, in this situation, let's say 135,000, what if you bought 3 properties, right? Because you can take the 135,000 divided by 3 and you put down 3 down payments of 33,000 on 3 different properties, and now you're leveraging bank's money to buy 3 assets instead of 1, right? That's the way you should be thinking, or your client should be thinking if you're working with an investor of such as an agent, right? So anyway, so that's the way I would, have that discussion. Like, hey, if someone is trying to buy something cash, like I would, well, have you considered talking to your lender, see what the returns would be, what cash flow would you have? Maybe you can buy 3 of these type of properties. How would that sound, right? And spread your risk over 3 properties versus just having 1, right? So any questions just for now? I want to, on this deal analyzer, it's very, very easy to use before I start changing scenarios. Speak up.
Can you repeat the part where you said, Randy, about where you're utilizing, where you're able to utilize bank money to purchase 3 properties versus doing the cash on cash, or
Perfect.
versus using cash?
Yep. Yeah, perfect. So for example, like this example on the left, right? Cash purchase. This is an example if Eric's investor bought it pure cash, let's just say for 135,000, because we're including the rehab money into this, right? The purchase price and rehab. And he used all his own cash and didn't go to a lender. This would have been his return right here, 10.68, right? If he had no maintenance issues or no vacancy issues, then his return would actually be 12.5%, right? For the year.
Okay.
And some people would be fine with that. But he would be out, he would have 135 of his liquid cash locked in this property. Are you in agreement on what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
Okay. So an alternative to that, what if you take the 135,000? What is 135 divided by 3? Who can do the math for me?
It's like 40 something, 40 plus.
Okay, perfect. 40 something. So let's just say it's 40 roughly. That's right. And I know it's more. How much are we saying right here would have been a down payment to buy this particular house if you were to finance this one right here?
33.
Not a trick.
7. Yep.
Right? It's not a trick question. So then you add on top of that, closing costs, whatever, you are now able to basically buy 3 properties because you're leveraging the bank's money for the 75% of the purchase price.
Gotcha. Okay. Yes, that makes sense. Thank you.
You see what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
And you probably would still have some money left over, right? Because you wouldn't spend 40 grand on each property. It would probably come in maybe like 36, 37, right?
Yes.
But you would own 3 properties. Yeah, you wouldn't have a monthly gross income of 1,400. You would get 820, but do the math. What's 820 times 3?
That's
Like
400.
2460 or 2460.
What would you rather have, 2460 or 1,400?
Yeah, 2460 sounds much better.
Yeah, right. And it's not a trick question, right? So by simply leveraging the bank's money and spreading our risk at the same time over 3 properties, we just took the same 135,000, bought 3 properties, and are actually making more cash flow than we would if we bought 1 property using all that cash.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Thank you.
Right? So it's powerful. So then any other questions? That's a great question, by the way. Any other questions before I start playing around with different scenarios on this spreadsheet? All right, cool. Feel free to interrupt me because I can't see you right now. I minimized you guys so I can look at my screen. So then Addison, are you back in? Are you listening?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so let's imagine we are in 2024. Let's fast forward. Oh, no, before we do that, let me do another example. Eric, you said that this investor that you helped buy wholesaled it and someone bought it for 115, correct?
Yeah.
All right, so then let's do that. Let's see how that person is making out. So they're all in. So they made 115, so 95, 105, 20 grand. Okay, so we're gonna up this to 155. So then that person, that investor, bought it for 115 and put 40,000 into it. So they were all in 155,000, right? Back in 2022. So similar rates, and we're not gonna change the rate. Let's assume that he refinanced and he had to go, loan to value 75% as well. So we're not gonna change that. So with all things being, the rest being equal, we already know that he did get 1,900. That's confirmed. That's a fact, right? Back in 2022. Today, he could probably get even a little bit more. Well, let's just talk about then, 2022. Let's see what that would look like financially for him. So he's looking at 11% return cash on cash. And if there's maintenance issues and vacancy, then it will be 9%. And then 22.5% return financed, right? And would most of you do this deal? And I can't see you, so maybe just say it. I would. I don't know about anybody else would do this
Yeah, I
deal,
would.
even at.
I would.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah. Yeah, I would do it all day long. $730 monthly income, like, and even if I have some maintenance issues, let's say 500, that's amazing. I would do this all day long, right? So even though this guy wholesale made 20 grand, so the other guy paid extra 20, let's just say, the number still made sense, right? And imagine that Eric's investor actually kept the property. So let's go back to 135,000, and let's be conservative, right? 3 grand, and I know that's conservative for Airbnb. Is that what you said, Eric? 3 grand?
Yeah, that was like our bottom number we were thinking.
Perfect. Yeah, that's definitely conservative. So let's just put that in and keep everything else the same. We lowered that. Yep.
I would say if
manage
you did that, I was gonna say fees, the management fee would probably go up.
15%, I think, right? I think
Yeah,
or
15 to
more.
20.
All
I'd
right,
do
let's even
17.
All right, let's do 17. Yep. And Airbnb property management companies, when that niche was kind of getting started a few years ago, where there were all these hosts, managing properties for other hosts, they were charging 25%. Now that industry has leveled off, and now it's somewhere between 15 to 20 max. So I agree. Let's be conservative. Let's put 17% management fee, and let's see what that would look like. Wow. Is this correct? Did I do math wrong? Hold on. I gotta question myself. Let's see. All right. So 56% return on your money, which makes sense, right? Because it's on your money, which remember, you only spent the down payment plus closing costs, right? So that's what that return is calculating, right? So who would do that?
Yeah, all day. But is that right?
Yeah, because this is
You have to
look.
you almost have to assume too, a lot of times on refinances, the return on your return is significantly higher because you're pulling out the majority of your capital. So like if you're refinancing a property, you're not leaving in 25%. You're, on a DSCR, maybe you have 10,000 cash left in there. So typically your returns are really high. Your ROI, return on investment, which is different than your cash on cash.
Yeah. So, and of course, he would have expenses like, furnishing it and all that. So there would be a little bit more cash that he would have to put into it as well. But regardless, this is right, because think about it. You're literally, this was 1,900, and you're upping it by 50%. You're adding another 1,100 on top of it in income. So like if I change this back to 1,900, come on, 1,900, it's going to go back to 24%. But remember, this is 17% management fee, which, we wouldn't have if it was a long-term tenant. So in this case, we use the 17%, but you up the cash flow, and look at that, man, crazy.
We did
So-
have we had Kim in here. She asked if Airbnb has higher maintenance and vacancy. It typically does, and we do account for that if we're looking into it. But also that's why we went with a really low. Essentially, that house would have Airbnb for about 150 a night in the slow season. So at 30 nights, you're looking at, which you're not going to book all of them. You're looking at 4,500. So we took in to account that about 10 days were going to be empty. So about a 33% vacancy rate.
33.
Yeah, that's why we came up with the $3,000 instead of coming up with the 4,500. And I actually had a really Dylan, who we had on one of these episodes, he had a house 5 minutes away that he Airbnb, and he killed it on it. I like, his vacancies were almost never there.
Got it. Yeah. So I guess the point of this, we're not going to get into specific, but it's just this easy to just plug in the numbers, right? And change it all here. So if the vacancy rate in an area, when you speak to Airbnb property managers, they say, oh, you got to, put in 25%, or you got to put in 20%, or in maintenance, you got to put in 15%. Well, then great. I just quickly put it in and it spits everything out. So what do you need to look at? You don't look at this number, the 56%. You look at this right here, 19. That's the real return, because you're going to have those vacancy rates and maintenance. So you want to look at this right here, 19. That's a big difference, right? So anyway, so now what I want to do is go back to the regular long-term buy and hold scenario, which is how most of the rentals buy and hold investors end up doing, right? Long-term tenants.
What was the principal and interest payment on that in this scenario?
Well, that didn't change.
Okay, that
It's
was
right here.
607.
607.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't change unless we just start playing around with the rate, which we will now. So let's fast forward, Addison, to today. If someone gets a buy and hold property today, and your conventional loan is at 7%, what are we adding? What's the spread that we have to add on top of it for a buy and hold? Are you there? Are we losing you? Addison? Hello?
No.
Eric, it's
I'm still here. I'm in Central Florida, just middle of farm fields, but I'm still connected. I would say too. So like the
I'm here.
principal and interest. Okay.
Okay, Addison. So today, what would be the rate for a property of a buy and hold single family?
You could do anywhere from 6.875 to 7.25.
All right. Well, let's be extra conservative. Let's say 7.5 even. Let's just be very conservative. And let's see, everything else stays the same. 135. And let's just change it to the 155, assuming you bought it from Eric's investor. He wholesaled it to you. So let's leave that, put that back at 155, and then let's see where that puts us return wise. 19% monthly net income, $423 once when you take into account maintenance and vacancy. I would still do the deal. Anybody else would do the deal? Speak up, because I can't see you.
Yep.
Yeah, I would still do the deal.
Yeah.
My down payment is higher, mainly because I'm paying more, 115 plus the rehab. That's 7.5%, right? I'm okay making $420 a month on the property. And if we go to Addison and he does our loan, then he said he can get you in at 85% loan to value. That's right, Addison, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And you don't have PMI
So then,
on the DSCR products at 15% too.
oh, beautiful. And does the interest rate go up if you put only 15 versus 25 a little bit?
No, it was on the DSCR it'd be 8.5, but on I would say today on an investment property with 15% down, you'd probably be at around 7.75 to 8% as of today.
All right, well, let's go with 8.5 DSCR product. Let's see what that spits out. All right, so cash on cash, we're looking at 11% cap rate or 9 after maintenance and vacancy if you have it. And for finance, we're looking at 21%. And it's getting tighter, but I think I'm still in. I don't know. Who's still in?
$400.
So
Who's
I would
who's
say
still in? Who's
I think I'm still in. Any lower,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was
I
gonna
mean,
say
in today's
typically.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, go ahead, Eric. No, you're
I was
gonna
gonna
say
say
what's up.
most of our buy and hold investors want to be somewhere when I'm running the numbers on a 15 to 18% ROI.
Oh,
Because you have to think if you got, and I know some that'll even go lower, but typically if you're in the stock market, just think if you put in 100 grand, you're not going to expect a stock like the S&P 500 return historically average is 8%. So with real estate, you're getting a higher ROI and you're getting tax benefits. And what's not calculated in this is built-in equity through not only appreciation but loan pay down. So, and I know
Yep.
there's like different ways to kind of actually calculate all of that, like the internal ROI. And
Yeah.
that includes equity and loan pay down and tax deduct. And it just, the numbers get crazy. So,
yeah. And you broke up for that moment when you say interest, the return. So what do your investors look for? The return?
oh, sorry, 15 to 18% on buy and hold, but I had some that'll go lower.
Got it. And is that the gross or is that after maintenance vacancy?
Yeah,
I'm
that's
guessing
after
it's
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So they
But that's
wouldn't
on
do
their,
this
that's
deal.
on their
with-
money. Well, no, because that,
Yeah.
like, yeah, like your ROI is 21% with the numbers you've got run right now. So they'd be willing to go down to 15% on that number.
Yeah. But if you subtract maintenance and vacancy, the ROI is actually 11.5 on this.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah, right here. So they
Oh, yeah,
wouldn't
you're
do
the
it.
cap
Got it. Yeah. So they wouldn't do it. Got it. Okay. I mean, I know with the environment we're in today, if you could get a deal like this today, I think that's still a win because most inventory providers that send me stuff right now, what they're trying to sell me on is negative cash flow and all the things that Eric just mentioned, all the benefits like the appreciation and the tax benefits and then all these things you're gonna get, which is
cash flow.
true. I'm not arguing with them. However, I personally don't want to buy a property with negative cash flow. I don't know about you, but that's what's out there right now because of the high price points and interest rates. And out of many conversations I've had as of right still, Ohio seems to be one of the few only markets that I'm aware of where you can still make your numbers work. And anyway, so if I had a deal like this, I would do it still, mainly because of what's going on in the market. But that's not the point even of this exercise. The point of this exercise is the deal analyzer and how quickly you can make these decisions with your investor, or if you are the investor working with your realtor, right? Being in sync and showing your realtor this deal analyzer so they understand how to run those numbers quick for you, right? So you don't have to do it. So it's a team effort, right? If you're an agent working with an investor, ask them, hey, do you have a deal analyzer that you use for your rental property analysis? No, you don't. Okay, what do you use? Oh, it's all in my head. Okay, great. Well, I have one. Is it all right if we use it? Yeah. Boom. It's the same thing we talked about last month about flipping, right? Ask the investor, do you have a deal analyzer? If they don't, present your own, and they would value your relationship that much as a professional. And then on the flip side, if you're the investor, make sure you give what you have to your agent. Let them use it, right? So they can do all the hard work for you and analyze these things faster and bring you the actual good deals that make financial sense, right? My batteries, it looks like it's about to die. I'm gonna plug my computer in. So Eric, I'm gonna let you speak a little bit as I move to a power outlet. And if anyone has questions, let's answer those.
Sure. I
Yeah.
lost you in the, I posted it in the questions too, but I think I lost you guys. So I've never invested in a rental property, looking to, but just wanted to understand the math a little bit better. So I was looking at the principal and interest at 1,000 and the gross income at 414. So I was trying to figure out like which part am I missing here?
Tell me again. So now what are we looking at?
So I was looking at the principal and interest in this scenario that we just presented, and it was 1,000, a little bit over
Yep.
1K, and then the gross income was 414. So I'm not making the connection there on the return.
It's right here. So it's the gross income is coming from right here. You see on row 18 that I have my mouse on.
Yes.
All right. So it's the gross income, summary of returns after fixed costs. Your fixed costs are right here: property taxes, insurance, and management fee. Those are fixed costs. Okay. Your vacancy and maintenance are in this column right here, taken into account. So after this right here, annual gross income, is after you subtract those costs, you will net $414 a month.
But what about or I think I'm still missing it. The principal and interest is still 1,000 though, right? Is that monthly, or I'm assuming that's monthly?
Yeah. But look, the
Rent.
the rent is $1,900
Oh,
per
gotcha.
month.
So he's
So if you take
subtracting the hard
$1,900,
cost, and he's
so
subtracting
take-
like the fees and then from
yeah,
the
so
rent.
take 1,900 right now and subtract 1,013,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Gotcha.
Where you at?
Little less than $900 or 800.
Okay, and then if you take the fixed costs, which are 5,680
Yeah, 190 for
divided by
management.
12, so subtract 473.
Okay, so that's 400 left, I think. Yeah.
So you had 1,900 minus 1,013, right?
Uh-huh.
And then you subtracted 473, and where did you land?
Your net
I'm
income,
on video.
What's the amount? Who's
413
doing the math with them?
for your gross income.
413. There you go. So this is where you landed at
I got
413. You
you.
see,
I got you. Yep.
right?
And that's
And then if
actually
you
a
take-
good thing. Well, I was gonna say that's
Go
actually a good thing that he brought that up, because I can't tell you how many investors I've worked with that don't assume, let's say the mortgage is 1,500. I've had buy and hold investors bring me properties and say, well, it's gonna rent for 1,900. It's like, yeah, you're making 400, and they're like, well, that's my cash flow. And it's like, what is it? Are you gonna do management? What about vacancy costs? What about repairs? Your capex? There's so much that a lot of people don't account for. So you can really mess up if you don't pay attention to those numbers.
Okay,
Yeah.
those extra costs, right? The management fees, vacancies, repairs. Gotcha.
Yeah, you just gotta remember what this means. Fixed costs are these right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then here is your maintenance and vacancy. So that's this return right here. So your cash flow is actually 223 if those things happen, but they might not happen every time, every year, right? That's why
Yeah.
they're not fixed costs,
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
right? So your potential could be this, very likely, if the house is rented for a whole year and the tenant stays there and there's no maintenance issues, then you should be able to make $414 per month. And then if you have a maintenance issue, then maybe, but no vacancy, well, then maybe that goes down to $350 per month, because you have to spend $500 on whatever, something happened, at the property, or 1,000. Does that make sense?
It does, yes. And I noticed you just had a couple more questions in the chat as well.
Okay, let's take them. Let me open the chat right now. Hold on. Let's see. Thank you for letting me know. Average
P&I
maintenance
is a
cost
fixed
in each.
cost,
P&I is a fixed cost. Well, that's separate. No, P&I is calculated right here. And then subtract and well, yeah. In this calculation of 414, it is, but that's correct when it's calculated because you already know what that is. So yeah, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And then we've got another question. Where do you find your average like maintenance costs? I would talk to a local property manager if you're not 100% sure. It's going to differ for every area. Like here in Florida, our property management costs are more expensive, or like our maintenance costs are a little bit more expensive because roofs have to be replaced more often. The siding needs replaced more often. If you have pools, there's so much that goes into it. So I try not to put like a number over it. The other thing is if you buy a brand new property with a brand new roof, you know, that's not going to be replaced for hopefully 20, 25 years. If you buy a house that has a 15-year-old roof, you might be replacing that in 10 years. So not a 100% number, but I'd talk to a property manager on it.
And then Kim, where do you get? Oh, that's what you talked about, the average maintenance. Okay, got it. Yep. Someone asked me last night.
I think it's. Hopefully, I'm not saying the name wrong. I'm trying to.
Tamara. Yep.
Tamara.
Tamara. Yep. Hi, Tamara.
DSCR is not. Oh, go ahead.
No. I just want to say hi to Tamara. I know her.
DSCR is not a hard money. It's just a loan. It's a and Addison would be better for this, but it's a non-traditional like method. It's just debt service coverage ratio. But you know, they're not hard money. Is typically, you know, you're paying significantly more than you are for a DSCR. And then the last one was I was told to use 10% maintenance cost. Is that too high? Depending on the house, 10% could be too low. It just depends on how old the home is, and it also depends on like what region you're living in. I know the northeast of the United States, a lot of the homes are 1800s and their maintenance costs are like sky high. If you've got a newer home, your maintenance costs are going to be lower. If you deal with extreme weather, your maintenance costs there, there's too much with it.
Cool. All right, good questions. Those are the last ones, and we're past the hour, so let's end it. Hopefully you got something out of it. Oh, by the way, if you're on here and you want this deal analyzer for being here live, email me, randy@realtynational.com. I'll send it over to you. It's randy@realtynational.com. And I forgot to put our links to YouTube, but if you just search for Investor Agent Nation, you'll find us there. Same thing with the Facebook group we have. Let me go to chat and put in my email, and feel free. I'll send you over this deal analyzer so you can play around with it yourself. All right, cool. Is that cool? Awesome, guys. Have a great rest of the week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
I made it service-wise. That's all I care about. Life is
Good job, Eric.